In this podcast episode, Professor Sir Simon Baron-Cohen, a world-renowned autism expert, delves into the complex nature of autism, exploring its definition, characteristics, causes, diagnosis, and social implications. Professor Baron-Cohen opens by highlighting the multifaceted nature of autism, describing it as both a disability and a difference. He explains that the disabling aspects of autism primarily relate to challenges in social relationships, communication, and coping with unexpected changes, which often require targeted support. However, beyond these difficulties lie distinctive strengths, such as exceptional attention to detail, superior memory, and profound pattern recognition abilities that can translate into talents and advantages. These positive traits have historically contributed to significant human inventions, an idea elaborated in his book The Pattern Seekers, where he explores the theme of systemizing, or the drive to understand and manipulate systems governed by rules and patterns. Rejecting outdated and stigmatizing views of autism as strictly a disorder or disease, Baron-Cohen advocates for the concept of neurodiversity. He argues that brains differ naturally in their development, and that autism represents one such variation, neither inherently better nor worse than others. This perspective reframes autism from solely a challenge to recognizing the diverse cognitive styles that enrich human society. When discussing the autism spectrum, Baron-Cohen stresses its breadth. Autism ranges from individuals with significant support needs, such as nonverbal individuals unable to live independently, to those with university degrees, successful employment, and independence, often previously labeled under terms like Asperger syndrome. Notably, he explains that Asperger syndrome is no longer used in clinical settings, partly due to its inconsistent diagnostic application and problematic historical associations with its namesake, Hans Asperger. Baron-Cohen addresses the ongoing debate within the medical and autistic communities about whether it is more useful to view autism as a single spectrum or to categorize subtypes for better scientific understanding and service provision. He aligns with the view that dividing autism into subgroups may facilitate more tailored support and research, while acknowledging the challenges this poses to the current diagnostic system. Celebration of autistic strengths forms a core part of Baron-Cohen's message. He challenges a historical emphasis on deficits by bringing attention to unique cognitive styles, especially heightened systemizing abilities, the capacity to understand and predict patterns in complex systems, from bicycles and computers to music and mathematics. This systemizing drives many autistic individuals' interests and talents, allowing for innovation and invention that has shaped civilization. He illustrates this with the example of Thomas Edison, calling him L in his book, recounting Edison's lifelong fascination with patterns such as Morse code and his intense focus in his workshop. Edison embodies the traits of obsessional focus and systemizing that, while sometimes socially challenging, underpin remarkable creativity. Baron-Cohen also cites population studies showing that people in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, fields tend to exhibit more autistic traits and stronger systemizing skills than their peers. Regarding the origins of autism, Baron-Cohen conveys that genetics plays a major role, with familial patterns and recent advances in molecular genetics identifying over 100 genes linked to autism. The genetics are complex and multifactorial, involving both rare mutations and common genetic variations that interact to influence development. Crucially, genetics alone cannot explain autism entirely, as evidenced by twin studies showing that identical twins can be discordant for the condition. Environmental factors, particularly those that influence the prenatal environment, such as sex-linked hormones, testosterone and estrogen, also contribute. Research has shown elevated levels of these hormones in the womb of autistic individuals, which interact with genetic factors to affect brain development. However, Baron-Cohen warns against hastily identifying unproven environmental causes, such as vaccines or pollution, which have been repeatedly debunked in rigorous scientific research. He precisely refutes the claim that vaccines cause autism, emphasizing decades of research disproving any link to the MMR vaccine and criticizing the resurgence of such misinformation. The conversation carefully navigates the sensitive topic of prevention. Baron-Cohen clarifies that while some parents understandably worry about the potential severity of autism in their children, the word prevention carries heavy and troubling historical connotations related to eugenics and discrimination against people with disabilities. Instead, he emphasizes valuing autistic people and prioritizing support over prevention. Treatments should focus on co-occurring conditions that cause distress, such as anxiety, rather than attempting to cure autism itself. He acknowledges the heterogeneity within autism, with some individuals experiencing significant challenges, such as intellectual disability or epilepsy, conditions that might warrant targeted interventions or preventive measures. Ultimately, he stresses the importance of involving the autistic community in research to ensure that scientific efforts align with their interests and well-being. Discussing diagnosis and support, Baron-Cohen explains that early detection involves observing behaviors like nonverbal communication and social interaction, with tools such as the Autism Spectrum Quotient available for parents and clinicians. However, he criticizes the often lengthy waits and insufficient support services following diagnosis, which can lead to worsening mental health and social isolation. Autistic individuals face disproportionate rates of anxiety, depression, and suicidality, with research showing alarmingly high levels of suicidal thoughts and attempts within this community. He attributes part of this to social exclusion, bullying, and misunderstanding, calling for improved safeguarding, inclusive policies, and destigmatization. Explaining the nature of empathy in autism, Baron-Cohen distinguishes between cognitive empathy, the ability to infer others' thoughts and feelings, and affective empathy, the emotional response to others' distress. He notes that autistic people often struggle with cognitive empathy but possess normal or even heightened affective empathy, contrasting them with sociopaths who lack emotional empathy despite intact cognitive skills. The interview explores differences in autism presentation between males and females, highlighting how girls tend to mask or camouflage their autistic traits more effectively, sometimes leading to underdiagnosis or late diagnosis. While autistic boys commonly exhibit overt behaviors like lining up objects or meltdowns, girls may pursue intense interests in socially acceptable topics and display less outward frustration, masking their struggles but potentially enduring higher internal stress and mental health difficulties. Baron-Cohen frames autism as an extreme male brain, reflecting observed gender differences in systemizing, more typical in males, and empathizing skills, more typical in females, with autistic individuals showing exaggerated male-typical patterns. Research from infancy supports biological roots of these differences, including newborn boys' preference for mechanical objects and girls' preference for faces. The dialogue also touches on the increased prevalence of gender nonconformity and gender dysphoria among autistic individuals, suggesting a complex interplay between neurodivergence and gender identity that requires further research. Turning to employment, Baron-Cohen identifies significant barriers that autistic people face in obtaining and maintaining jobs. Social expectations around communication, eye contact, and teamwork can disadvantage autistic candidates during hiring processes. He advocates for alternative assessment methods, such as task-based evaluations and workplace adjustments tailored to individual needs, including managing sensory sensitivities and providing predictable environments. Examples of successful autism inclusion programs appear, such as Cambridge University's Disability Resource Center, supporting autistic students in adapting their environment to thrive. The aim is to create conditions where autistic strengths can flourish, reducing the disabling effects of a non-inclusive environment. The discussion explores the rare but fascinating phenomenon of savant syndrome, where individuals display extraordinary skills that seem out of sync with their overall developmental profile. Baron-Cohen shares stories of autistic musicians with exceptional auditory memory and nonverbal individuals who dominate Rubik's Cube competitions, highlighting the diverse ways autistic talents manifest. He stresses the importance of supporting these individuals to harness their abilities while addressing everyday living challenges. Concluding, Baron-Cohen reflects on the future of autism research, noting substantial progress but emphasizing many unanswered questions remain, particularly in understanding the brain's diversity and identifying effective interventions. He envisions a future where evidence-based therapies and supports are readily available, personalized to each autistic individual's needs. He poignantly calls attention to autism as a human rights issue, pointing out that many autistic people worldwide are denied fundamental rights to education, employment, healthcare, and dignity. Addressing this gap, he argues, is crucial to fostering a truly inclusive society.